professor at Harvard, and Clay is the #1 guru in our field. Last year, they had a survey, consulting firm did a survey, and they asked who is the #1 management guru in the world right now, and Professor Christensen was picked #1 by managers and CEOs. So this guy is not only the #1 strategy guy right now, he's the #1 management guy. He just happens to be a strategy professor. So he is the #1 strategy guy, but he's more of a #1 management guy. And his theory of disruptive innovation is the best theory we have right now in our 50 years of our strategy short history. If this is the first time you're hearing about Clay Christensen, please never forget this guy. What you have to do starting today is you have to put it in your pocket. And every time you have to make a good decision as a manager, you take this guy out and you get his help. And it will give you a lot of insight into the problem you're trying to solve. So I urge you, I implore you, never forget Clay Christensen. Oh, this guy you can forget. Don't ever forget this guy. Before I introduce this theory, so that you will never forget this guy, I will introduce to you 2 characteristics of Clay. So you will never forget this guy. Actually, I didn't know either. I was in the 6 years of the doctoral program, as I mentioned, and I read his articles. Great article. Wow. But managers love him more. The #1 guy. But I never met him. But then in the year 2010, Clay Christensen comes to Korea to give lectures and stuff. And then the first time I meet him, and I was shocked. First time I meet this guy, I meet Clay Christensen. And he is 2 meters, 6 centimeters tall. I mean, when you read the guy's article, I don't know how tall he is. But just the better the article, the shorter I think he is. I don't know why. But then I meet this guy who comes to Korea in 2010, and he's like 2 meters, 6 centimeters tall. And every time Clay Christensen lectures at Harvard, he went to China, India. Every time he goes to lecture, this is how he always starts his lecture. Kid you not. Let me first start my lecture by apologizing to my audience. I'm very sorry to be so tall. The reason I'm so tall is it's my dad's fault. So I think his dad was really tall. So it's hereditary. And Clay Christensen, when you listen to his lecture, I mean, he's going to come to Korea. He's only 60 years old now. He's really young. He's the #1 guy. He goes to he lectures at Harvard. Goes to China, India, Korea, whatever. He's going to come again. But when you listen to his lecture, this is what happens. Wherever he goes, this is the impression of the audience. I mean, great lecture. The #1 management strategy guru. Talks so well. Theory is so great. But then after his lecture, another characteristic is your neck hurts. Do you guys remember my goal for this class, the first day? Anybody remember that goal? I had 2 goals for this class. Now at the middle. See if you remember my goal. Anybody? Yeah? Understand strategy. Yes, that was my #1 goal. My goal for you at the end of the semester was this. Yes! This is strategy. I didn't know this was strategy. This is so important. This is going to help me. And I wanted you to be all interested in this field of strategy. And your strategy education doesn't end at the last class. It begins in the last class because you're really interested in this stuff based on this semester. That's my #1 goal. But then as I look at the audience now, as I remind you of this goal, there are 2 people in the audience with this expression. Oh? Can you guarantee me that you're going to achieve that goal? There are 2 people like that. I'm not going to say who it is. There's 2 people like that. Like, can you guarantee, man, that you're going to achieve that goal? That I'm going to develop a love strategy? And so for those 2 people, let me just say, I'm sorry, I can't guarantee achieving that goal. I'm going to do my best, man, but I can't guarantee. But for those 2 people, I can say one thing. I cannot guarantee that you will develop a love strategy. I'll do my best, but I can't guarantee it. But to those two people, I will guarantee you one thing for sure. At the last day of class, your neck is not going to hurt. Let me apologize for saying I'm so small. It's my mom's fault. Mom, how come you're so small? The second characteristic of Clay Christensen is like 2 meters, 6 inches tall. He's tall. He has this huge presence. So after a lecture, your neck hurts. But the second characteristic of Clay, don't ever forget this guy. That's who I'm telling you. He speaks Korean.
Who you?
And it's not like Victor speaking Korean. No. Victor speaks some Korean, man. Talk! Yeah. 안녕하세요. 감사합니다. 불고기. It's not that kind of Korean, guys. If you meet Clay Christensen, he can have a dialogue with you 5 minutes. Korean. Maybe in a good day, 10 minutes. Because in the year 2010, I had this honor of meeting Clay, and I'm thinking, I gotta get all my English ready, man. My English, marshal all my English. And I meet the guy, and he says, 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. And why Clay Christensen, the #1 strategy guru right now, he can speak so well Korean. Clay says, Hulk, by religion, I'm a Mormon.
You're what?
Or Mormon. Do you guys know the Mormon religion? He's a Mormon. And when he said he was a Mormon, I knew right away why he spoke so fluent Korean. Because when I lived in the US for 15 years, the thing that I saw the most for my 15 years, remember? The #1 thing I saw most was?
Cow.
Cows. Thank you very much. The people that replied are going to do very well in the final exam. 15 years of my life in the US, the second thing I saw the most was?
Wife.
Walmart!
What?
No, I'm not kidding. 15 years of my life in the US, the third thing that I saw the most was Mormon missionaries. There's so many Mormons where I live. My dissertation chair was a Mormon. My best friend, Matt Samadhi, he's at Indiana University, a full professor of strategy at Indiana University. He's a Mormon. And I get to know Mormons because I didn't know. And Matt told me Mormons, first of all, they have a lot of wives. No, not now. Long time ago. And I'm thinking, lucky man. Not now. But then the other thing about Mormons is that they all speak a foreign language very fluently. And I asked Matt, why? And he says, in the Mormon church, when you are young, you are sent to a foreign country a lot of the time. Missionary work. To spread the Mormon words and gospel. But before they send them, the Mormon church, they teach the language really strenuously, rigorously. And my dissertation chair, he speaks Portuguese fluently. Why? Because he did missionary work in Portugal. My friend Matt, his nickname is Lucky Matt. Not because he has many wives, just one wife. He was sent to Spain for 3 years. Lucky man! But before he goes to Spain, the Mormon church teaches him Spanish. And so Clay Christensen, 1971, at the age of 18, where does Clay Christensen go to do missionary work?
Korea.
Thank you very much. It's Korea. Sorry, the picture's a little blurred. This is Clay Christensen in 1971, 2 meters, 6 centimeters tall. This is Korea. And he came here. Before he comes, he learned Korean language. He comes here for 2.5 years. Where did he do most of the missionary work? He said Busan and Gangwon-do. And this is Busan. And But now, he forgets a lot of Korean, obviously, because a lot of time has passed. But even to this day, if you meet him and you can speak Korean, he can have a dialogue with you for 5 minutes in Korean. The #1 man in strategy has a lot of affiliation with Korea. He loves Korea because he came at a time when Korea was so poor, and he saw the development of Korea. And so never forget this guy. He is the #1 guy. If you look really carefully, you'll see me in this picture. Man, I'm old. Okay, this is Clay's theory. Think about it. I have about 15 minutes to introduce. Think about it. If you have some questions, great, ask, we'll talk. But then listen, and then next week we'll really discuss this theory. Does it make sense? How can it help you? And then all these stuff, okay? Now, what we do as professors, if you did not know, the #1 thing that we do as professors is not teaching. Many people have a misconception, especially my uncles. They're all in business. And this is what my uncles always say to me. Is teaching hard? Is it fun? How much do you teach? They don't know nothing about academia. What we do most as professors, and if you want to become a professor, it's not teaching.
Research.
About 1% of our job is teaching. 99% of our job is research. That's what we do. And so Clay Christensen, all research, guys, starts with the mystery. You see the doctors at Severance Hospital, the cancer center that recently opened? The doctors in the cancer center in Yonsei University, this is what their mystery every day as they come to work. What is the cause of this cancer? How do we cure it? This is their mystery. Now us, Gesundheit, bless you. Actually, I should not say that. As a Korean, you should not say that. Everybody, different cultures, a little bit different. When I was in the U.S., you're in some kind of a closed space, and somebody sneezes at you, they say, "Bless you." Then I'm thinking, in Korea, you know what you do? If you're in a closed space and they sneeze at you, this is what the Koreans do. But compare. Whose response is more rational? Bless you? What do you mean, bless you? You just spitted 1,000,000 germs in my face! What do you mean, bless you? The correct response is Korean is the correct response. And we, business school professors, we don't have mysteries like doctors. We can't cure cancer. But we have a lot of pride as well. And Clay Christensen, when he was a doctoral student at Harvard, these were the 2 mysteries that he wanted to solve. His first mystery was this. He looked at a lot of industries. And by observing these industries, this is his first observation. In every industry, there's something called a leading firm. It's always there. Sometimes these leading firms, there's one leading firm. This is called a monopoly. Sometimes in an industry, there are 2 firms that lead the industry. This is called a duopoly. As we mentioned before, there are many duopolies in Korea, but in worldwide, probably the most famous duopoly is airplane manufacturing. Boeing and Airbus currently have a duopoly. How long? I don't know, because there are a lot of companies in Canada, Brazil, that are attacking, but right now it's a duopoly. Most companies, most industries are led by, as we mentioned before, an oligopoly. 4, 5, 6 firms as a group, they lead this industry. Anyways, in every industry, there's a leading firm. But this is Clay Christensen's observation. He looked at so many industries. And his observation is this. In all these industries, these leading firms, they die. So often. In so many industries. And Clay was curious. How did all these leading firms die? That's his first. And the second mystery was this. In every industry, if there is a leading firm, there is something called a non-leading firm. Now, mind you, these non-leading firms are not firms that are doing poorly. They're doing well. It's just that they're not able to lead the industries. But Clay Christensen's second observation is this. In so many industries, so often, these non-leading firms, they kill the leading firms, and they became the leading firms of these industries. And he said, how could that happen? And so Clay Christensen, as a doctoral student, he started trying to solve these 2 mysteries. And for 4.5 years, he was at Harvard doctoral program doing this research, and the solution comes to him after 4.5 years. And this is his conclusion. The reason that all these successful firms died, the reason that all these non-leading firms eventually killed these successful firms and they became the successful, the reason that this happened was because of disruptive innovation. And his theory of disruptive innovation theory is the #1 theory, as I mentioned many times, right now, currently in our field of strategy. And his theory came about trying to solve these two mysteries. Okay. Now, with that, let me introduce to you the main graph of disruptive innovation theory. To understand disruptive innovation theory, you guys have to understand this graph. But you'll understand it very quickly. It's not that difficult. Let me explain, introduce very quickly. This x-axis is called time. You know, and you know, time keeps on going. You know, nobody can stop time. You know, it's very, very frightening. And this is time. This y-axis is called performance. But be careful. When we talk about performance, there are two meanings of performance. There's performance in terms of ROA performance. The y-axis is not financial performance. The y-axis is the second meaning of performance in the dictionary. How well does the product or service perform? So for example, if we are a company that makes microphones, one dimension of this microphone in terms of performance is how well can you hear? If we make this pointer, one dimension of this performance of this pointer, one of them, is how well does it clearly point? This is the Y dimension, the performance of the various products and services of firms, not financial performance. This red line indicates managers. Managers' innovation trajectory is the red line. And if you look at this red line, it goes upwards. And this is Clay's observation. He says, managers, this is your tendency. Managers, over time, you have a tendency to increase the performance of your product and services. That's what he says. Now, everything in this class that I introduced to you guys, you have to make the judgment, as you do every class. Some things will not make sense to you. Then you will have to ask questions. Why doesn't it make sense? And we need to have a dialogue. Some things will make sense to you. Some things you'll click in your heart. Man, that's important. You know, I got to remember that and use that. Great. You know, a lot. So ultimately, you got to make the decision of whether these things are right or wrong, and how we can improve. And anyway, so let me just introduce. So this red line is managers' innovation trajectory, and managers, every day, managers, when they come to work in the morning, early in the morning, until they go home late at night, they continuously try to innovate the performance of their product and services. They try to make their performance of their product and service better. You know, that's what, because you were born that way. That's what he said. Managers are born to innovate. Now, this dotted line, what this represents is consumers. And as we saw from the Dell case, there are many consumers out there. For example, for a corporation like KEPCO in Korea, that's in the utility business, one of their customers is the Saudi government because they sell nuclear reactors. You know, like GE, they sell nuclear. So sometimes a customer can be a country. Many times a customer are companies. Many times customers are us. Very diverse customers. Anyways, this dotted line represents, from the customer's perspective, how much we want and how much we can utilize the performance of companies' various products and services. That's the dotted line. And if you look at the dotted line very carefully, guys, the dotted line has a slope. What this means is this. Managers, you guys, you have a tendency to innovate your product and services every day because you were born like that, you know? But then this dotted line, it also has a slope. And what this means is, we want that performance. We like what you made. Thank you very much. That's what it says. This red line also indicates the #1 leading firms in every industry is the red line firms. That's what Clay says. How do you become a red line firm? How do you become a successful firm, a leading firm? This is how you become a leading firm. This is the common denominator of leading firms. This is what they say. Who are our biggest, most profitable customers right now? Then we find the needs and wants of our most biggest profitable customers, and we come to work early in the morning, we go home late at night, We come to work on the weekends, and we continuously go up this red line, and we improve and innovate the performance of our product and services. With that, we satisfy the needs and wants of our biggest, most profitable customers. And we create a lot of value and money. This is how you become the leading firm. This is the red line firms. These leading red line firms, Clay Christensen puts terminology. He says the leading red line firms are sustaining innovators. And so this is the word we use in strategy, guys. We don't usually use the word leading firm. We say sustaining innovators, but it's the same thing, red line firms. And so these firms are the leading firms, and they lead by trying to come up with their improving and innovating the performance of their product and services to satisfy the biggest, most profitable, most important customers. And that's how they lead. But this is Clay's research. These red line leading, sustaining innovators, they died so much throughout history. And I will introduce examples next week. I will introduce his books, articles I gave to you already. And if this is the first time you're reading his work, you're going to be surprised. How did all these firms die? And his second observation is this. If you are not a red line firm, how could you kill these red line firms and you become the red line firms? Because it happens so often. And again, his conclusion is the same. It's because of disruptive innovation. And in terms of disruptive innovation, right now, there's only two types of disruptive innovation based on our research. Maybe in the future we'll find more, but right now there's only two. One is called low-end disruption, and the second one is called new market disruption. And this is the conclusion of disruptive innovation. All these leading, sustaining red line firms, they died because of these two disruptive innovation. And all these non-leading firms, they found these disruptive innovation and they attacked using these two types of disruptive innovators, and they killed the sustaining innovators, and they became the sustaining innovators. That's it. Because disruptive innovation, there's only two types. Let me go through these two types using this graph to illustrate these two types. And then next week we'll talk about more examples and a lot of stuff regarding this theory. The first one is called low-end disruption. And again, as I mentioned to you guys are the red line. You're managers. See if I'm wrong. See if Clay's wrong. When you start working, or in your previous work, you always have a tendency to innovate. That's what you do. Make your product and services better because you're born that way. The consumers, then we don't want that innovation. We want it. Thanks. This is the big difference, guys. Managers' tendency to innovate, the red line, and consumers wanting of that innovation, the dotted line, the slope is different. This is a huge difference. And managers, you innovate, but you innovate, the trajectory is very steep because you're born that way. Consumers want that innovation. We like it, thanks. But we don't want it as much as you have a tendency to give it to us. And even if we want it, a lot of times we can't use all that performance that you have. And so the dotted line of consumers is much less steep than the red line. So the red line and the dotted line slope is different. So what? What does that mean? This is what it means. When you are here in your industry, the early days of the industry, the dotted line is above the red line. And this means consumers are not yet satisfied yet. And managers, consumers have a lot of expectations. But managers, because your ability is very low, you can't satisfy them. So what you do is you continuously go up this red line. Work every weekend to make your product service better because that's what you were born like that. And consumers want that. They love it, but they don't want it as much as you give it. So over time, what happens in every industry is that the red line of managers surpasses the dotted line of consumers. And when this red line surpasses the dotted line, who appears in this industry? We say over-satisfied consumers appear in this industry. When it was here, when it was this world, there are no over-satisfied consumers. But because the slope is different, over time, the red line of managers will definitely surpass the dotted line of consumers. And when the red line is above the dotted line, when it becomes this, oversatisfied consumers start to appear. And the first type of disruptive innovation, the low-end disruption, is targeting oversatisfied consumers. Now, oversatisfied consumers. This world, this is the end road for every corporation, for every country, for every individual. This is commoditization, guys, that we just talked about. This is hell. When the red line surpasses a dotted line, this is the hell that we were talking about. Every one of us here will get to that point. Every company will get to that point. Every country will get to that point. It's just a matter of when you will get there. Because industries, everybody individually, your jobs are different. So your product life cycle is different. And so right now, in the year 2014, if we take a snapshot of all these industries in the world, microprocessor industry, somewhere here, automobile, somewhere, business school education, somewhere, pharmaceutical, somewhere. It's different because the life cycle is different. Industries are born in different years. But they will ultimately get to that end goal. It's not a question of when. It's not a question of if. It's a question of when. And so if you take a snapshot of your picture, when you become a manager of it, and your firm is in a lot of businesses, and if you take a snapshot of your picture and you say you are here, our business is here. Clara, what do you have to do if your business is here? Kitty Bob! If you take a snapshot of your firm, business, and your firm's business, one of them is here, what the hell do you have to do as a manager?
Yeah, like innovate more.
Innovate more.
Innovate more!
Thank you! And Andy, innovating more, what is that called? I'm getting cold. Huh? Somebody warm me up. What is that called? Innovating more.
Sustain?
It's called sustained innovation. And so if you take a snapshot of your industry and you are here, then you have to go up that red line and increase the performance of your product and services more. It's called innovation. That's what you have to do. Now, as a manager, you take a snapshot of your industry right now and you say you are here. We're going to get there very soon. Then you should think about a low-end disruption. So a low-end disruption is targeting oversatisfied consumers. This is the first condition. If there are no oversatisfied consumers, then you cannot succeed as a low-end disruptor. But having oversatisfied consumer is the necessary condition to succeed as a low-end disruption. It's not a sufficient condition. The second condition to succeed as a low-end disruptor, the sufficient condition is you have to satisfy oversatisfied consumers. And Hyunjun, how do you satisfy oversatisfied consumers, man? Because if you don't, you can't succeed as a low-end disruptor. How do you satisfy? I'm home. Sejong, how do you satisfy oversatisfied customers? Because if you don't satisfy, you're not going to succeed. Anybody? How do you satisfy? Yes! Yes, thank you so much. You gotta lower your prices. Sometimes people they get misunderstanding. It said, well, hope to satisfy oversatisfied consumers, you gotta give them better features, better performance. No. These people are oversatisfied with performance. That's the definition of a person. These people do not exist in this world, but because the red line and the dotted line slope is different, the world will change. And when that changes, these people come, and these people, they don't want better features, more performance, because they're oversatisfied. What they want is lower price. then how do you lower your price? Sorry, let me rephrase it. I mean, how do you lower your price without going to the prosecutor's office? Levon, how do you lower your price, man?
Maybe we are lowering the number of features as well.
We can lower the number of features. Sarah? Simplify, lowering features. In strategy, the way to lower prices, we focus on maybe many ways, but it's focusing on cost. So what a low-end disruption is this. When oversatisfied consumers start to appear, you find a way to lower your costs. You brainstorm with your team. Go to outsourcing, insourcing, offshoring, I don't know. And use all the ways that you can do to lower your cost. And this is called creating a low-cost business model. And you lower your cost with that low-cost business model in such a way so that you can reduce your prices. Then this is the killer, guys. With that low price, you have to have margins with that low price. Because the low-end disruption is targeting the bottom end of the market. But the bottom end of the market, the definition of the bottom end of the market is there are no profits. But you must squeeze profits with the low price in the bottom end of the market. This is called a low-end disruption. It is so difficult to do a low-end disruption. It is so easy to lecture about low-end disruption. Actually, lecturing is not easy either. My throat hurts. See, lecturing low-end disruption is relatively easy because all it is your throat hurts. But as a manager, to do a low-end disruption, it is tough. If you can do this, so many leading firms throughout history, they died because of it. So many non-leading firms used this to kill the leading firm, and they became the leading firm. But this is tough. Let me give you an example of a low-end disruption. Not a real serious one, but one that hopefully that makes sense. And we'll talk about real live ones later on. But this is a real example too, but this is one that I made up. Let's see if this makes sense. This is my Galaxy Note 3, guys. You've seen this before, right? Well, let's say this red line is Samsung Electronics. And this is Clay's research. This is what he says. The managers and executives of Samsung Electronics, every day when they come to work, until they go home, they have a tendency to increase the performance of this Galaxy Note 3. Now, many people already, I'm sure, have already guessed that. This is the consumers of Samsung Electronics, But this dotted line, there are many dotted lines. Because Levon is a dotted line, Victor is a dotted line, I'm a dotted line. There's so many dotted lines. Because everybody's different, and we are not oversatisfied at the same time. So when we talk about something, it's all different. In terms of Yonsei University Business School, our GMB program, there are people that are oversatisfied, undersatisfied, so a lot. But there are millions of dotted lines. But if we put all these dotted lines, we can't really have a discussion. So this is what we do. We take Samsung Electronics, the sustaining innovator right now, and we draw a normal distribution. And in the middle of this normal distribution, we have this one dotted line. This is the representative consumer of Samsung Electronics Galaxy Note 3. But as we have this people, there are people in terms of these dotted line consumers that are over here that want more performance from this. And there are people here that the dotted line is beneath here that don't want that much more. Because everybody's different. We know that. But we can't talk about everybody at the same time. So we draw a normal distribution and we have one dotted line. And so this dotted line is the representative of Galaxy Note 3. More specifically, this dotted line is hope. And so Samsung Electronics managers, every day they have a tendency to increase the performance of this. But then Hulk doesn't want the features of this. I want. I told you. I am not envious of Leonardo da Vinci. Because Leonardo da Vinci, although one of the geniuses ever, he never got to use this. And I'm so proud that before I died, I was able to use this. But this is Clay's theory. Although I want the features and performance of Galaxy Note 3, I don't want it as much as Samsung executives give it to me. Even if I want all these features and performance, a lot of times I can't use it. And so the slope is different. And so over time, what's going to happen is Samsung Electronics managers, their tendency, their red line to innovate and make the performance of this Galaxy Note 3 better is going to surpass Hope's dotted line. And when this red line surpasses dotted line, in this world of mobile phones, oversatisfied consumers are going to appear. And when oversatisfied consumers appear, this is the oversatisfied consumers. These consumers, this dotted line, when it was this world, they did not exist. But because the slope is different, when this red line surpasses dotted line, these people start to appear at the bottom end of the market. And when these people appear, this red line firm, the low-end disruptor, they have an opportunity. Because now they can attack Samsung. When they were in this world, these firms cannot attack Samsung because they can't make a phone with these features. But when these people, when this surpasses this, when these people appear, they can attack because they can lower the performance of this. Because these dotted lines, they're oversatisfied. They don't want it anymore. They're oversatisfied. And so they reduce the performance. As they do that, they come up with a low-cost business model to reduce their prices and start scraping the bottom end of Samsung Electronics market and make some profit. This is the low end. This is me, and this dotted line is my dad. My dad has been a professor all his life in accounting. He was an accountant before. And before it got commoditized, he became a professor. Good job, Dad. And he's retired now. And he's living with my mom in a rural area of Korea, about 3 hours away. And I should go see him. You know? He's retired with my mom. You know, they raised me up. You know, and I should go see him, but I don't go see them very often. And this is my excuse. I'm very busy. Dad, I'm busy in Seoul. And so the last time I went to see my dad was when I got my Galaxy Note 3. I wanted to brag. And so as I waited 2 weeks to get this, guys. And once I got it, I ran to my dad, retired, rural area of Korea. Dad, I finally got my Galaxy Note 3, man. Be happy for me. And my dad says, what is that? Sit down, son. What is that? What are you talking about? Dad, you don't know Galaxy Note 3? Okay, Dad, this is what I'm going to do for you. Tomorrow, I'm going to buy one for you. And when I buy you this tomorrow, this has so many features. But one of the things you can do starting tomorrow, when I buy this for you, is starting tomorrow when we have a phone conversation, you can look at 5.65 screen! Super AMOLED! And you can use the screen to look at your son's face as you talk to your son starting tomorrow, Dad. This is what my dad says. Oh, sit down, man. Starting tomorrow, I don't want to look at a 5.35 screen, Super AMOLED, and I don't want to see your face as I talk to you. Very cruel man. And so I'm very, very angry. I said, okay, Dad, man, I don't have to say it like that. And so later on, my dad, he said these things to me, and so I was very angry, and so this is what my dad says later. To comfort me, he says, okay, wait a second, let me ask you a question. Oh, yeah? How much does it cost? Oh, this? $1,000. This is what my dad says to me. Do you have anything cheaper? Sorry. Okay. I've been a student all my life, and I've been a professor for 15 years, and I think the worst thing that can happen is you say something and you laugh. Only by yourself. Try not to do that, but this is the best example of low-end disruption. See? When the world was here, my dad does not appear. Anybody oversatisfied with the first cell phone, smartphone in the market? Not many. But because managers, their slope is different. Later on over time, the red line is going to surpass the dotted line. And when that happens, people like my dad start to appear. And he says, I don't want Super AMOLED, Hope. You know? I don't want all those features. $1,000, no. Just give me something cheaper. And you know I can't see very well, so make it larger. And I'll buy. And so these companies, before, they could not attack Samsung because they don't have the performance. But when my dad starts to appear, they can attack my dad because he doesn't want all these features. He wants a lower price. And so they come up with a way to reduce their costs, to reduce their prices, and start attacking my dad. And this is called low-end disruption. Yes, Kitty Pop, did you have a question or suggestion or comment, sir?
Just want to ask, like, because some company, like Samsung, they still keep their low-end line as well to keep that low-end disruption people from coming in. But they also have another series to get another customer.
Sure. And we'll talk about those issues. You know, some have low-end and high-end together. It's tough to do them. I mean, the conclusion of this theory is sustaining innovation more important or disruptive? Because there's only two types of innovation from strategy point of view. It's either a sustaining innovation or a disruptive innovation. That's our perspective that we use. But then which one is more important? Well, the conclusion is both are important. But this is the problem based on Clay's research. When an organization tries to do both, it's very tough. Because everything that you have in your organization that helps with your sustaining innovation, it's going to hinder your disruptive innovation. And everything that you have in your organization that helps with your disruptive innovation, it's going to hinder your sustaining innovation. It's a paradox. And so the next question is, how do you overcome this paradox? And this is Clay's research. I'll introduce these concepts sequentially next week as well. Yes? Which one?
So for customers, do you think they really can clearly know they are oversatisfied?
Oh, customer? Oh, sorry. Oh, well, what do you think? They don't know? Customers are stupid? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Let's say for a cell phone,
Yeah.
there are like CPU, there's 4 cores, 8 cores.
Right.
Much better than some of the computers here.
Sure.
But they just cacao with the phone.
Oh!
But they actually buy the concept of the Samsung they provided.
Okay. Sure. I mean, and you know, increasing the speed of the computer is more of a sustaining innovation. It's not really a disruptive innovation. And it's going up that red graph of faster computers and all this stuff. But this is what the theory is saying. When it was in the early stages of the industry, when you increase the speed of stuff, people really love it because it sucks. You know, when it starts. You know, when you know what the first computer was ever? First computer, a commercially viable computer, PC. No, it wasn't ENIAC. The first viable computer, commercially viable. Some people say it's Apple I. Some people say it's Apple II. It's not. The first commercially viable computer, when you ask the experts, some people say Apple I and II. It's really bad, Apple I and II. First commercially viable computer was IBM's computer in 1982, they say. But to give you an idea, anybody here ever purchased an IBM computer, the first viable, commercially viable computer in 1982? In 1982? You were born in 1982? Huh? Oh, okay. So, did you use the IBM 1982? How was it?
It was so heavy because you have to understand the formula. It was a black screen.
Okay.
You go to the right. Right, until you get your command.
Yeah. I did not know in this GMB class there would be somebody that had used the 1982 first commercially viable IBM computer. Man, I found somebody who in 1982 they bought the first commercially viable IBM computer and used it because I wanted to convey this experience. Let me convey you. He bought it. This is what he said. In 1982, he bought the first commercially viable IBM computer, and this is what he said. This is his experience using it. He was so proud, so happy. You know, first viable computer, and then this was the first thing he did. He cleaned the screen, and this would. I'm the luckiest SOB in the world right now. I bought the first IBM commercially viable computer. This is what he did. And then this is what happened on the screen. This is what happened. I kid you not. I am God. crack this a little wide. I don't know how to make it. What happened was, in 1982, when you first bought the first viable computer, IBM PC, you were really fast at typing. If you're a typist, in a courtroom, you type. But the microprocessor in it was one, I think it was by Motorola or something, I forgot, before the Intel. Intel was bad too, but before that it was worse. And that was the one that they used, and it was so slow! There was a lag! And so when they typed this, it appeared on the screen slowly. And some people were that fast, they had to wait. After they typed, they had to wait. Read a book. Done. And so this is the world in 1982. But consumers, they had so much expectations. Right now, I come from work, I've been using the mainframe. I've been using the mini computer. Now you're going to have the PC. They have so much expectations. But in 1982, the managers of IBM, their ability is very low. It could not follow their typing, I told you. But managers, because you're born to innovate, continuously go up this red line and innovate the product and services. And you make the computer go faster. 286, 386, 486. And consumers don't want it? We want it.